So in November 1985, a hunter is walking through Bear Brook State Park in New Hampshire, and he comes across a metal barrel sitting in the middle of the woods. Not near a path, not near a road, just randomly dumped deep in the trees, somewhere nobody had any reason to be. He reports it, police come out and open it up, and there are two bodies inside, a woman and a young girl, both stuffed into plastic bags, both beaten to death. No identification on either of them. No missing persons reports that matched, no witnesses, no leads, nothing. Just two people that the whole system had somehow never noticed were gone. That's where this case starts, and it's going to be 34 years before anyone can say their names out loud. The medical examiner works out they'd probably been dead for 1 to 3 years before the hunter found them, so sometime in the early 1980s. The woman looks to be in her late 20s or early 30s. The girl is somewhere between 8 and 10 years old, and the fact that someone had driven out to a state park, carried a heavy metal drum deep into the woods, and left it somewhere genuinely hard to stumble across makes it pretty clear this wasn't a panicked, in-the-moment thing. Someone had planned this, and then carried on with their life like nothing had happened. The problem is that without any identities to work from, investigators have basically nowhere to go. You can't trace someone's history if you don't even know their name, and you can't figure out who the victims are. Police go through every database they have, circulate the information as widely as they can, and get nothing back. The two victims get placeholder names. The case goes cold and just sits there for years with no movement, which is already really grim. And then it gets worse. Because in May 2000, investigators go back to Bear Brook to do a more thorough search of the area. And they find a second barrel. Same woods, same method, hidden nearby. Two more young girls inside, one between roughly 2 and 4 years old, the other between 1 and 3. Same plastic bags, same location. Someone had come back to these woods more than once, which tells you something about how comfortable and unbothered they felt about all of it. What was already a horrible case became a much bigger and darker one. 4 victims total now, 1 woman and 3 little girls. And with better technology available in 2000 than there had been in 1985, investigators run DNA testing across all 4 of them. The results show the woman was the biological mother of 2 of the girls, which is already devastating enough on its own. But the third child, one of the 2 from the second barrel, had no biological connection to her at all. She was from a completely different family. So whoever did this had killed people from 2 separate households and buried them all in the same spot. And just think about what that says about this person and how long they had been doing this. More attention comes to the case over the years. Facial reconstructions get made. DNA profiles go into every database. Documentaries get made. Tips come in from all over the country. And none of it leads anywhere. The woman and the 3 girls stay completely unidentified all the way through the 2000s and into the 2010s. 4 people murdered and hidden in steel barrels in a state park, and for 30 years the world had no idea they were even missing, because the person who did this had specifically chosen victims that nobody was going to immediately notice were gone. What finally cracks it open is genetic genealogy. Instead of just running a DNA sample against a criminal database, you upload it to the same genealogy websites regular people use to find out where their great-grandparents were from. If the unknown DNA even partially matches a distant relative who uploaded their own sample years ago, investigators can build out a family tree from that match and work backwards until they narrow down who the unknown person is. It's slow and takes a lot of work, but it had already solved cases that genuinely looked like they'd never be touched again. In 2019, 34 years after that hunter found that first barrel, the adult woman is finally identified. Her name was Marlis Elizabeth Honeychurch. She was born in 1957 and was 26 or 27 years old when she died. Two of the girls were her daughters, Marie and Sarah. The reason no missing persons report had ever matched them was that Marlis had spent years moving around with very little paper trail behind her, which made it easy for her to vanish without any official record catching it. And when you hear that detail, it's really hard not to feel like that wasn't an accident on the killer's part. Because getting Marlis's name leads investigators straight to him. His name was Terry Peder Rasmussen. He had been living with Marlis and the kids in the years before their deaths, going by the fake name Bob Evans, which was just one of several fake identities he used. Rasmussen was the kind of guy who never stayed anywhere long, kept starting fresh somewhere new under a different name, and consistently left women and children behind him everywhere he went. DNA testing confirms he was the biological father of at least some of the children in those barrels, and the fourth girl was also his daughter, through a completely different woman he'd been involved with. He had killed people from two separate families and dumped them in the same woods, and by every indication had just carried on with his life completely normally after that. And here's the thing that makes the ending of this case so genuinely frustrating. By the time investigators put Rasmussen's name to all of this, he had already been dead for 9 years. He died in 2010 in a California prison on child molestation charges, having spent the years after Bear Brook doing exactly what he always did, until the system caught up with him for something that wasn't even close to the worst thing he'd ever done. Investigators confirmed his identity through DNA from one of his biological sons, and the match was definitive. But there's no trial, no courtroom, no moment where any of it caught up with him for the right reasons. Marlis, Marie, and Sarah Honeychurch were finally buried under their real names in 2019. The fourth little girl got her name back too, through the same genealogy work. These were real people with real families and real histories, and the world had no idea they were gone for 3 decades, because Rasmussen had spent his whole life learning exactly how to make people disappear. It took a random discovery in the woods, a second barrel 15 years later, and 34 years of forensic science slowly catching up to finally bring them home. What do you think of this case? Comment below, and don't forget to like and subscribe while you're there.